Welcome to the Seraphine podcast. I'm Seraphine Arocha, and I am with my girl, Chelsea Atia. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Welcome back to our review of this season of The Hills, New Beginnings. This episode is a fun one. Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's a good one.
It was a really good one. I have to say, they're doing a great job this season. Their storylines do not feel like a typical Hills or Laguna Beach, like, okay, that was so set up.
They really feel natural.
They do.
I think they're getting a better production team.
They are. Even though we know how set up it really is and how many of these relationships aren't even together anymore, but it's okay.
But it's crazy because after all these years, this show is still like you get sucked into it with the same characters. And there's a couple additions, but mainly the same characters. Kind of the same plot lines, same kind of drama, but like you love them in a different way now.
Totally. And I totally love that MTV is using Seth Rogen now. Seth Rogen has tweeted all these like sarcastic, funny comments about The Hills, but he's watching.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I love it. It's so funny. So we jump into this episode, and I always love how they start, like with the cool music that's on MTV and everyone in their cool life, like little vignettes of what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
So they set it up with Brody and Spencer and
a little bro lunch.
Totally. And Brody, he's decided to hang up his sober. What do you want to call that? The sober shoes, and now he is in his freaking tequila boot scoot and boogie shoes. He went hard, not hard. I can't say that this drink is hard. It just tastes amazing. It's the Casa Azul, and he's sipping on it, and then Spencer orders like 8 dishes of freaking food.
Yeah, it was crazy. But what I did love about Brody is he's like, okay, I did my stint. 6 months is a long time in LA to not drink and all. I mean, it probably helped that. Well, I don't know if it helped or hurt, but everyone was in quarantine, so you weren't like the nightlife wasn't there. But he said, on occasion you can have a drink and make it like a social thing, and if you can handle that sort of thing, I think that's great.
Well, and honestly, I mean, I hate to say this in a way that's like dismissive of anyone's ideas on alcohol or weed, but California sober is basically like, I'm going to have a ton of weed and then I'm going to sip on a club soda.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. I appreciate sobriety. And I really appreciate sobriety when you're totally clean. You don't touch anything. Mm-hmm. I'm always a little bit like, alcohol and weed. I don't know. We can have a whole podcast on that later of debate of like what it does to your brain and how you react to it. But I do love the fact that there is a real checks and balances in this group about, hey, I might be drinking, but remember when we were in our 20s, we set the table on fire at, frickin' Nobu. So I mean, like, you can't be too holier than thou when you've come from a place where everybody understands we've all had our battles with alcohol.
Totally.
But they talk a little bit, which is so interesting because I do find that if you're in a friend group where you're a husband and wife or girlfriend and boyfriend and you're friends with the other girlfriends and boyfriends, husbands tend to talk, or boyfriends tend to talk a little bit more freely about shit that frankly, it might be like a touchy subject. And Brody opens his mouth up about Audrina, and that in turn, I mean, Spencer is loyal to the T to his wife.
That is another thing that I freaking love about their relationship.
Totally.
You know what? And Caitlin even said this in this episode. She's like, they are so loyal to each other. Like you cannot, you can't rock them. And I love that. Spencer has Heidi's back 100%. Heidi has Spencer's back 100%.
100%.
That's the way it should be.
It's unbreakable. And even their little crystal ceremony.
Yes.
It made my heart feel good because I'm like looking at her, and we all have been there. If you're in my age bracket of the pressure, if you're married and you're like thinking about kids, and when your body's not doing it, it's hard. It can be a lonely thing. And I love that Spencer's like, you know what? I'm going to put my crystals on you. And she's like, Lord Jesus, bring that baby inside. And they're like, woo, it was pretty.
They're so cute.
They're so
I really
cute.
Love them.
They own their goofiness and awkwardness.
They do.
And you like them.
Yeah, I really like them.
So then we have a storyline that frankly I was really surprised that like tugged on my heartstrings. And it was Justin and him visiting his house.
Yeah.
And I mean
losing his mom.
And just like peeling back some layers to where he comes across as, I mean, over the years he's come across as such a detached
mysterious, guarded.
I wish he was mysterious. It almost felt like he was trying too hard.
Totally.
But now I understand why he tried so hard, because he was protecting, I think, some real.
To be fair with you, I had a feeling something like that was involved in him acting that way, because anyone that is that nomadic, that runs away all the time, there's a reason behind it. There's a psychology behind it. There's an experience. So I'm just glad that we got a glimpse of like what that was, and to see like an actual, this whole time, ever since he's been on the hills, you just think he's like just too cool. Like he's just a cool guy. You're almost like, intimidated by it a little bit. But to see this like more vulnerable side of him was really cool.
And I also like the fact that even though Jason was more so kind of taking on the role of guide and interviewer of let's take him down this path, he definitely held good space for him. He offered up enough about his own family experience and allowed Justin to really just talk through his experience. And this is interesting. We've really never seen Justin in a living space.
Right.
He's always coming into people's spaces. He does not show people where he lives.
No.
He doesn't even really talk very much about his financial state. We see him surfing, which is not a cheap sport to do.
Yeah.
We've seen him on motorcycles, but he really doesn't show his financial state, his home. And it's very protective. Even his clothing is not like, he's not in Gucci like, Heidi and Spencer.
Right.
And trust me, I love me some Gucci, but I really appreciate that his storyline, even the camera shots of him, there was a few that were new, and he actually got teared up talking about his loss of his mother. His face looked, I have to say, look grown up for once.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a man, not a boy trying to be too cool.
Yeah.
So,
and I think a couple episodes ago we talked about how he was talking to Caitlin about how he wanted to have kids in a family, and then he was also talking to someone else about how he didn't want any of that. Like, he didn't want kids, nothing like that. I think that he says that he doesn't want kids to people because that's his persona. He's a nomad. He can't, but I truly believe him that he does want to have a family and kids, which you would never think from Justin Bobby in the combat boots. Our favorite combat boot wearer.
Totally. And again, there was a vulnerability, and I was like, wow, he could be a really cool dad, because he did talk about how he was in. I mean, it was weird that he used the word gangbang, because I think now of it more being sexual.
That's exactly,
But I know in that age bracket of like Compton, gangbang was really like a gang banging up with guns. But it was a little weird, especially when he was referring to him being around 15 years old. I was like, oh, well, I don't know. And he looks like, I mean, he's a good-looking guy who doesn't look like he's hard on the streets, but that's me with my own prejudice. But he did talk about how when he lived with his dad, how he like learned how to surf.
Yeah.
He learned how to do all of these things to take him away from a negative way of life.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes for a really great father of introducing sons of like, it's not just a one, like, the guys who only do one thing their whole life. Like, I've played golf, total douchebags usually. But if they are multifaceted, not only do they play football, but they're a photographer, an artist, aka Aaron. It's just cool to see that. Then the really meat and potatoes of this episode is all the drama with Audrina and Heidi, and then Kristen is back.
Kristen shows up. I love that. She said, "I'm back, bitches," or
Yes.
something like that. It's like, okay, we're throwing it back, and I love that little.
It's cool, and it's cool to see her energy. She brings a vibrance.
She
and
does.
a life.
Everyone said that too.
Yeah.
You know what? Every single person at that party told her how great she looked. You look so great. You look so great. Blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, she does look amazing. Spencer was even like, he was kind of blown away by her. He's like, you're thriving.
Yeah.
Like, you don't look like you have 3 kids. Brody said, how did you have 3 kids?
Yeah. She's definitely, and the thing about her is, unlike Erica Jane that we talked about in our Hills review, she's going through divorce, and she talked about dating, but she's not talking about her tingling nether regions. And like, she's someone who I love how she said to Audrina, like, I want to go out and flirt around in Nashville. Like, I could see them having a really good time. They're like, they're not being the definition of a divorced woman, right?
Exactly, because they're both, Audrina and Kristen are both went through divorces and have children,
and they're both beautiful,
and they're gorgeous and haven't aged at all. So they could have their pick of the litter. So
and they handle themselves with class but sass.
Exactly.
I like that.
Me too.
But then we've got Audrina, Audrina,
she's getting herself into like a weird pickle here,
and it's such a weird place to put herself, because again, I look at Ashley and I look at Heidi, and I'm just like, these 2 women need to just have a conversation.
They do,
because
they did,
and it was a good conversation,
and it was fine. And then afterwards, Ashley was pissed because she was like, "Did you tell Heidi that I was talking shit about her?"
Yeah.
Audrina's like, "No, I didn't say that. Blah blah blah. I told her this. I told her that." I'm like, okay.
It really is that kind of, I don't know. Again, I understand when girlfriends are around each other and we get hyped up and we try to have each other's back.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that if your friend groups are too close, unfortunately, if you're hyping up a negative thing, it will in turn ricochet into the friendship, and it's going to come back to you some way.
Totally.
And then it was hilarious because Kristen looked at Audrina like, "Oh, great! I'm so glad we're gonna have this party and everybody's fighting." She's like,
"At least I'm not. It's not, the drama's not about me for once."
Which usually it is.
Yeah.
Then the theme of this party was like sexy in the city.
Yes.
And let's just talk about the outfits here. I mean, I have to say, Kristen looked
fabulous.
She just knows how to do it right. She's gave just enough skin.
Yeah.
Oh, everything about it.
Yeah.
And then we have walking in Heidi in her blue bra.
Like a straight up bra.
It was a bra.
It was a full on bra. She's still she's still stuck in like the 2007 Hills era. Like that's a Hills outfit.
That is a Hills outfit.
OG Hills
I mean,
outfit.
I remember the days when I would go to frickin' Fredericks of Hollywood. I would buy a long line corset and I would have my low rise Britney jeans. By the way, free Britney. I absolutely looked like I was like going to Pussycat Dolls, but a Britney Spears concert. I'm like, that outfit. I was like, oh, hi.
It was a throwback.
Yeah, it was a throwback. Go girl.
You need to like get a new stylist or a stylist at all. I don't know if she has a stylist.
Or keep the jacket on.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to take that jacket off right away.
I mean, when she walked in, it was completely unbuttoned and she's like, "Hey, I'm here."
I love it. And then we have Audrina, who had piles of extensions on, but looked very Kardashian with the braid.
She did.
And I did like her little white bustier. But oh my gosh, talk about interesting conversations. They did set up. They played with my heartstrings here for a second.
I know.
With Brody.
Yeah.
I mean, Brody, he's like such a Lothario. He comes in with his floppy hair, and then they show all this footage of like him and Kristen, and I got a little nostalgic.
Me
for
too.
them.
It's like, oh, okay. I kind of forgot for a moment that they actually ended the Hills OG with them walking off together, and then it kind of panned up. Remember that last scene?
Yep.
And it showed that it was like a production set.
Yeah.
It kind of was like a, haha, this has been production the whole time.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting too, because I think what I did like is when they saw each other, I do believe, my husband tells me all the time that he's like, I don't want any of your exes in our life, because no matter what, there's always this little like, ee.
Yeah.
And you saw the ee. Like those two were smiling ear to ear. He even says like, God, when, Kristen's in town, I want to turn up.
Yeah.
And it was funny because Kristen and Audrina did the right thing of having the conversation of Audrina being like, hey, we're definitely talking. But I really thought that something might happen.
I did too, but then Audrina's in the car because it showed like the previous night. It showed Brody being like, "Where's Audrina at?" And then the next day, Kristen, I told you this off air, but I thought it was going to be Stephen Coletti.
Totally.
I'm like, let's bring Stephen Coletti back.
So Kristen and Brody decide to meet at the beach. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I really want to go to the beach. I'm like, okay, if I were Audrina. He
always brings people to a beach.
I know. He's Mr. Malibu.
Yeah.
And then, she's waiting and she looks really pretty. And I'm like, okay.
She was sassy.
She was sassy.
I think she had a little bra on.
She did. She looked very beach flirty. And then the car pulls up and then it was interesting because they didn't show his face right away. And you did have a really good guess there.
Yeah. Because she just said something like, oh, hey, something like that. And it's totally like a throwback to Laguna Beach when Kristen and Steven were together. Gosh, please bring him back on this show.
I know. I would love to see those two. Yes. And then of course Audrina's in the car.
Yeah.
It was a great episode.
But wait, what? Because what is Audrina thinking when she spent the night with Brody and then they're on their way to go drop him off to see Kristen? That's weird.
I think she's kind of staking her claim.
Oh, like she wanted to go to be like, 100%. Okay, I spent the night with him. So like,
and they wore matching hoodie, sweatshirt out. Yeah, there's definitely this one's mine right now. I'm like, I get it though. I mean, they're both hot girls, and honestly, to be fair, I mean,
who would you choose?
Because of their history and because I think that they match each other. I think Kristen can dominate Brody, and Brody needs a little bit of like.
He does.
Audrina's never gonna dominate Brody.
No,
ever.
But Audrina's super cool, like Brody.
She
like
is.
She'll just go to the beach and just chill with the guys. I think like Audrina. Well, I don't know, Kristen.
Brody, if Brody can just dial it back and just be a boyfriend and not be DJ Brody, I think they have a potential. He could be a potential stepfather to her kid. But
totally,
with Kristen's like, I have a freaking football star as a dad that I still have a relationship with. I have a freaking business.
She's way more like But okay, can we just say the previews for next week with Caitlin getting annoyed again that like Brody and Audrina, something's going on between them. I'm like, it's time to move on. It's been a year. By this time, it's probably been 2 years.
Totally. I mean, I don't know. If you're not back with Miley, find someone else. Maybe Justin Bobby.
I think they'd be great.
We'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and doing all the stuff. This was a really good one. We are so emotionally invested in this.
We really are.
We really are. It's almost embarrassing. Anyway, on that note, like Seth Rogen says, I mean, it is addicting as hell, but we've got some Justin Bobby back, and he redeemed himself.
Yes,
Put in our whatever in the, what do you put it
in the comments?
In the comments.
Tell us if you're team Kristen or team Audrina. I don't really know if Kristen and Brody have a chance together, but like, what do you think?
What would you like to happen? All right, we'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for joining us. Click the subscribe button. We'll see you on the other side.